Hey guys, we are going to build a website together. So I'm going to go through the process from start to finish, building a website for a client, right from getting it set up on GitHub, building out the HTML, Jekyllifying it, uploading it to the content management system, all the way ready for the client to go in and edit it. So we're going to get started now. I'm doing this all on the fly as we go, so I may make a few little mistakes as we go, but you'll pick them up as I do, and it's probably a good chance to practice or have a refresher on troubleshooting and how to deal with that. Okay, so this is our design. It is a simple design that could be used for a spa website, but the reason I chose it is that they're also really reusable components and reusable style for just about any website. So we've got a header up the top that's got a logo, a simple navigation, a little underline to show which part is active. We've got a banner. We've got these content blocks that have heading, paragraph, and image, and they just alternate. We've got a call to action panel, which is super common to have some kind of button or call to action or subscribe. We've got a little testimonials grid, an embedded Google map, and a contact form. Okay, so where would we start? Now the first thing we want to do in our project is to get the website set up on GitHub. So to do that, I would go to GitHub Desktop, and I can see on the left-hand side all of my repositories, and I want to create a new one. So I want to go create repository. Let's call this Spa website. It's going in my GitHub folder because that's where I want it. And I hit create. The next thing I'm going to do is go to that folder. So we want to go to GitHub. We now have this folder called Spa website, and I want to open that in Atom. Now, you don't have an option for open in Atom, so what we want to do is open Atom, and then we'll say File, Add a Project Folder, and we will find it and open it. Okay, so we've got our Spa website folder. Now we need to create some files. So I'm going to start just with the basics. Let's do our homepage, index.html, and let's do our style. Now if we save, we should be able to go to GitHub and see that we've created two files. So this can be our first commit. Now, if you need a refresher on GitHub, GitHub is saving every single version of our website that we commit to the cloud. So we can see a version-controlled history of every code change we've made. So I'll give it a name. Let's say created files, commit to master. Now over here I can see the latest state. There's no new changes since I've pushed those ones live. And then we hit publish. So we're going to call it Spa website. It's under my account. And that's it. Now you have to be connected to the internet for this. So if you're working offline, you'll have to save this step until later. Now while we're waiting for that to happen, it's all done. We can see it's now been added under the GitHub side, so we know that it's worked correctly. So now any major changes we make in Atom, once we've saved them and committed them, we'll have a permanent backup in the cloud. So coming back over to Atom. Now, we want to get started building our website, and the first thing we do is set up the document structure. So we would put in our doc type. Then we would put the head and the body. And for best practice, you always want to wrap these in HTML tags. You may often skip that step because it doesn't obviously break your website, but it's best practice to have it. So we've got our head and our body. Now in the head, we're going to want a few critical pieces of information. We'll want the title of the site. Let's call it Spa Website Bali. We want to connect our CSS style sheet. So we'll pop in a link and link to whatever we've called the file name. So here it's style.css. And we need to tell it what relationship it is. So this is a style sheet. Those are the two critical pieces for a link. Now we've got the body, and this is where the fun begins. So let's go over to our design and have a look what we've got. The first thing I usually put in is the sections. So we've got a header, a banner, which is probably a section. We've got these section grids. We've got another banner. We've got this testimonials section, etc. So to make it easy, how about I squish this over here on the side? See if we can close this. I can't close it, so I'll just export it quickly. So we'll pop this over here for reference so that we can see it while we code. Okay. So let's start with a header, and I'll put in a comment so that I know where I'm up to. I just want to put a header. In that header, I've got a logo, which will be my H1. Actually, I don't want to make my logo my H1 because that's going to change for each page. So let's just keep the logo as it is. We want the logo on each different page to link back to the home page, so we'll make it an anchor link. So let's do a class equals logo. And inside that, we would either put an image, if it's an image file, or in this case, we'll do a H2. If the client hasn't provided you with a logo yet, I would often just either use a placeholder image or a placeholder text. Then we need a navigation. So let's pop in a nav, and within that nav, we've got a set of links. So when we don't know the name of the link, we could just do a hash. Often I do this to make it faster. But in this case, let's just stick with that for now until we've created the pages. So we've got home. Services. And contact. Now you'll notice I've put these in lowercase, even though it's uppercase over here. That's because we always want to change the styles using CSS, not using HTML. If we wanted to go back later and change the style from having uppercase everywhere to having lowercase, we don't want to have to go in and change the HTML. So we'll just keep it like that for now. This logo we're going to change anyway, because it's obviously not going to say logo when it goes live, so it doesn't really matter. So that is our header. Next up, we've got this little section here, and we'll apply the container elements to figure out the grid after. I want to stick to HTML since this is a refresher. So let's put a section. And inside that section, we've got 4 divs. We'll do a div with a class of background image. And we could do this 2 ways. We could put an image inside the div, or we could just put a background image on the div itself. This time, let's put it on the div itself. It'll be easier to scale and adapt. So we've just got an empty div that's got a background image. Then we've got a div that we want this content here. So let's say this is a H2 and it says skin lifting. Now to target the two different colors, we're going to need to use a span to target a specific part of it individually. We could do the span on skin or we could do it on lifting. Since the rest of the headings are grey, I'm going to assume that the part we want to change specifically is the pink. So I'll pop it around this. You could put a class here. If you were going to apply different effects to different headings, you would use a class of, say, featured or highlight, for example. Since this is the only span we're going to use inside our H2s, we can probably leave it. Then we've got a H3 that says facials. Now you may just use generic terms and headings. We're going to use Lorem Ipsum for all our paragraphs, but I've put in real words for the headings just to help make it match the design. Now if you missed that, typing Lorem with a lowercase l and pressing tab in Atom will auto-create a paragraph for you. So that's our second div. Now we want the next row to be a text div and then the background image one. So we'll put in another text and we'll put in another image. Now often when you do this it can get confusing, so what I like to do is a little comment to say first row. And then after that, second row. Just helps visually as you're skimming down to see what's what. And in the second one, I'll just change this quickly to body tightening. Okay, so we've got our H3, we've got our paragraph, we've got our div, we've got our second background image here. This div doesn't look like it belongs to anyone, so I can get rid of that. And that's the end of the second row, and we close off this section. Now the next section is our call to action. So we'll copy in our section. We obviously haven't been doing most of the classes, we'll fill those in as we get to the CSS. Within this section we want H2 that says, what are you waiting for? And we need a button. Now buttons are just hrefs with style. So we pop in an anchor. We don't know where we want it to go yet, so we'll just use a hash. We'll give it a class of button and then say book now. That's our call to action. Now we want our testimonials section. So again, we've got this same multicolored heading thing. So I'm just going to copy that from above. We'll copy in a section. And this one says, happy customers. Now, we've got here 3 items. Now, we'll get into the specifics of why later, but we want a div to be their container. And then inside that, we want 3 individual divs to wrap them. So we'll go div with a short paragraph. And then we can copy this so that we have 3 of them. So we check that each one is closed, check that our main container is closed, and then we can close the section. Next up, we've got a map. Now we'll add that in later. For now, I'm just going to put a placeholder. This is for map. And then we're up to our footer. This is my actual workflow. You can see I kind of jump around sometimes. I'll forget my comment and go back for it. I'm just going to do this 100% real. Okay, so in our footer, we have two containers, it looks like. One with a form, one with a heading and a paragraph. So let's do a div for each. Inside the first div, we've got a H2 that says let's connect. And connect is wrapped in that span to change the color. Don't worry about the styling. I know it's a bit different to our H2s up here, but that's okay. Then we've got a paragraph, which we'll just fill with some more lorem ipsum for now. That's the end of that first div. And in the second one, we want a form. So for now, let's just put a placeholder and say this is a form. Okay, now we can save that and we should be able to go and have a look. So if we go to Finder, we find the folder that we were working from and we open it up. We can see our HTML. Now that's kind of confusing. I can't see much just yet. So let's bring it over and go back to our index. And I just want to apply some really, really basic styles so we can see what's going on. So we've connected our style sheet. That should be all working. And there's a few things I want to do. Let's target the sections and the divs. And let's give them a border of 1 pixel, solid, really light gray. 255 is white. So if we do, say, 230, that's pretty light but not white. Okay, let's check what that's done. Cool. So we can see where some of our kind of elements and containers are. The second thing I'll do is our universal reset. So we want to set our margin to 0, our padding to 0, and our box sizing to border box. And we'll notice immediately everything gets a bit squished. That's okay. The next thing I want to do is just give these sections and divs a little bit of padding. We can remove that later. Just helps to show us what's what. And let's include our header and our footer here as well. So this is a multi-selector. I'm selecting the header, footer, section, and divs, all of those. And it's giving me just a little box around each one. So this is our HTML pretty much done. Now what we would do is go back to GitHub and do another commit. So we would say build HTML of homepage, for example, commit it to master. It'll pop up down here to let you know that it's done, and then you hit sync. And syncing will push it to the cloud version. Committing commits it on your desktop, syncing pushes it to the cloud. Depending on how fast your internet is, this will go pretty quickly. All right, have a look in the next video. We're going to get started on the CSS.